This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Progress, but a long way to go in Baltimore.
We're going to continue working and planning for a third alternate channel.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Donald Trump assails President Biden's immigration policies at two rallies as Biden hits Trump on abortion. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Severe weather in several states, leaving homes and businesses without power.
Power outages and tree damage.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
Donald Trump is suing two co-founders of Trump Media and Technology Group. I'm Norman Hall.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off a sell-off. Gold hit a fresh record high. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The latest from Taiwan as a major earthquake rocks the nation.
The Tropicana Casino is closing after welcoming guests for 67 years on the Las Vegas Strip. I'm Donna Warder.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Demolition crews in Baltimore continue to navigate challenges in the aftermath of the Key Bridge collapse after it was hit by a cargo ship. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest.
There's a lot at play as the wreckage is being recovered from the water and as crews look for bodies of the construction workers who disappeared in the collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Engineers and salvage teams continued with wreckage assessments and site analysis to make sure that we have a clear understanding of the work site.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore says two different channels are now open as the port looks to resume business around the collapse site.
One temporary channel is on the northeast side of the collapse with a controlling depth of 11 feet. We opened another channel today at around 1315 or 115, and it measures 14-foot depth.
Still a long way to go, but Senator Ben Cardin with assurance that whatever's needed will be available.
We're going to continue working and planning for a third alternate channel when we get those spans that are just north of the Deep Draft Channel removed.
Dive teams also navigating challenging conditions, including weather and the wreckage, of course.
We are taking every precaution to keep them safe. We are making sure that when we send them in, that they are guided properly.
Colonel S.D. Pinchason with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says the wreckage is more extensive than initially thought.
The collapse of that wreckage, it's not just sitting on the seabed, it's actually below the mudline. That makes it very difficult to know where to cut, how to cut.
State lawmakers are now considering legislation to help out locals who are out of work because of the collapse. Officials hoping that future construction and continued work in the harbor will allow some to have work. I'm Clayton Neville.
Despite concerns by some GOP members in the House as to who will pay the tremendous cost of the cleanup and rebuilding of the Key Bridge, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says the federal government will pay the lion's share, which could top $2 billion. Donald Trump visited Michigan and Wisconsin, delivering two speeches highlighting what he calls the Biden Border Bloodbath. John Stolnis has that story from Washington.
Standing in front of local law officials on stage in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Trump lashed out at policies he says makes Biden responsible for crimes committed by people in the country illegally.
The migrant crime that we name it, it should be called Biden migrant crime, but that's too long. But you'll always remember it was Biden that gave it to us.
Trump telling potential suburban women voters they should be looking to him to keep them safe, not Biden.
If you don't want illegal alien criminals crawling through your windows and ransacking your drawers, then you must vote for the fact that we have to throw crooked Joe Biden out as fast as possible.
Trump highlighted the murder of a young Michigan woman named Ruby Garcia last month by her boyfriend, a Mexican man who had previously been deported.
By an illegal alien animal. The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals.
Later in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Trump promised big changes to immigration policy if he's elected.
On day one, we will terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration and begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
And for the first time, openly called for Biden to engage in presidential debates with him.
Let's debate outside, Joe. Let's go have a good, solid, friendly debate, just a friendly where our country's going, because our country's going to hell.
Trump ended his Michigan speech with this ominous warning.
If we don't win on November 5th, I think our country is going to cease to exist. It could be the last election we ever have. I actually mean that. we don't win. I think this could be the last election we ever have. That's where our country's going.
Meanwhile, the Biden campaign is focusing on recent rulings by the Florida Supreme Court upholding restrictive abortion laws, highlighting Trump's prior statements, taking credit for the overturning of Roe v. Wade in this ad.
Now, in 2024, he's running to pass a national ban on a woman's right to choose. I'm running to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again, so women have a federal guarantee to the right to choose. Donald Trump doesn't trust women. I do.
John Stolnis, Washington.
Severe weather rocks the nation. Now the cleanup begins. And new Trump accusers. Those stories when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome. This is America in the Morning. We're into the first week of April and more snowfall. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
An area of low pressure centered over the Great Lakes will hold nearly stationary this morning before shifting to the south and east this afternoon and tonight. There will be colder air being drawn into the system with moderate to heavy snow possible through the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, southward to Wisconsin, and even northern Illinois. There have already been several inches of snow in parts of southeast Minnesota, into eastern Iowa, Wisconsin, and northwest Illinois. The snow that falls today could amount to another 6 inches or more, especially in some northern communities. Not to be outdone, another part of this same storm will be spreading moisture northward to New England, where heavy wet snow will develop later today and especially tonight. Some areas will have more than a foot of snow, most likely in some of the northern mountains. Meanwhile, the associated cold front from this large and powerful system will also continue the development of severe thunderstorms. This risk, along with the cold front, has shifted to the East Coast states from Florida northward to Delaware and southern New Jersey. These storms will continue to carry the risk for damaging winds, hail, heavy rain, and even a tornado. If you're not in the snow to the north or the severe weather to the south, then you're likely in the heavier rain in between today and tonight. After a good soaking yesterday, many communities will see another 1 to 2 inches, and there will be a growing risk for flooding. The West Coast will have a storm as well, leading to some unsettled conditions today and tonight. It will build southward along the coast heading into tonight, with rain and mountain snow developing out and ahead of it. That's the weather across America. It is going to be a nice day in Boulder, Colorado, with plenty of sunshine and a high of 66. Some rain gear may be handy in Charleston, South Carolina, with showers and thunderstorms and a high of 78. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A surge of destructive storms lashed multiple states, causing damage across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys Tuesday. Severe weather impacted millions from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes and over to New England. Correspondent Haya Panjwani has a follow-up.
Severe weather in several states, leaving homes and businesses without power. In Green Bay, Wisconsin, National Weather Service meteorologist Roy Eckberg says folks could expect low visibility due to severe rain or snow.
Visibility could get quite low, maybe a quarter mile or less.
He also said the wind could cause some people to lose power.
There could be some power outages and tree damage due to strong winds and the heavier snowfall.
In West Virginia, about 40,000 customers were already without electricity on Tuesday afternoon. Oklahoma was hit the hardest, where strong, heavy rains produced 3 suspected tornadoes. A 46-year-old homeless woman in Tulsa also died as a result of the storms after she got stuck in a drainage pipe. The storm's expected to move into New England beginning Wednesday night. New Hampshire and Maine could see up to 18 inches of snow. I'm Haya Panjwani.
A Trump media update. Correspondent Norman Hall reports that Donald Trump has filed a countersuit against 2 Trump media co-founders, blaming them for what he calls severe mismanagement, after they first sued the former president over a month ago over what they said was a stock grab.
Donald Trump is suing 2 co-founders of Trump Media and Technology Group, the newly public parent company of his Truth Social platform. The lawsuit contends that the 2 should forfeit their stock in the company because they set it up improperly. The suit, filed March 24th in Florida State Court, follows a complaint filed in February by those 2 co-founders, Andy Latinsky and Wes Moss. Both were contestants on Trump's reality TV show The Apprentice. Their lawsuit, filed in Delaware, sought to prevent Trump from taking steps the two said would sharply reduce their combined 8.6% stake in Trump Media. I'm Norman Hall.
Bitcoin, Tesla, United Healthcare shares all down. What's behind the big loss on Wall Street? Business News is next. America in the Morning, back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is sponsored by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a sell-off for stocks. Bond yields popped up, pushing markets down. The major averages were all down about 1%. The Dow dropping about 400 points.
We have this little wobble. It didn't, at this point, change the character of the market. Right now, we're just in the zone of where we were at last week's low. Are we definitely still in by the dips mode? It seems like it, but I'm on alert.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Gold shattered records yesterday, eyeing $2,300 an ounce. Oil rallied yesterday. U.S. crude topping $85 a barrel. Brace for higher prices at the pump. But it also sent energy names to record highs, including shares of Diamondback Energy, Marathon Petroleum, Phillips 66, and Valero, to name a few. Bitcoin went the other way, tumbling $5,000 in 24 hours as interest rates jumped. Tesla shares dropped 8% on weaker than expected EV deliveries in the first quarter.
Deliveries in the first quarter of 387,000 vehicles. The consensus was for 457,000 vehicles to be delivered. First quarter of last year, the company delivered 422,000. So this is a year-over-year decline, the first since 2020 that we've seen from Tesla.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. So far this year, Tesla has lost a third of its value. Shares are down about 32%. GM also saw a drop in first quarter vehicle sales. Toyota, Honda, and Nissan all had gains. Shares of healthcare companies like United Health, Humana, and CVS Health all tumbled on disappointing Medicare Advantage reimbursement rates for next year.
And so now investors who say they knew a sell-off was coming have something to crow about.
Well, some say there were telltale signs, and Ritholtz Wealth's Josh Brown talked about a few on CNBC.
There had been some really classic indicators that the market was in need of a little bit of a cooling off. When you saw that activity happening with the Donald Trump SPAC, you just knew that there were games being played. You also saw a whole bunch of meme coins, and I don't mean accidental meme coins like they just became meme coins, but things that were deliberately created to troll everyone. You saw some of those start to add billions of dollars in quote-unquote market cap. These are the types of things that typically happen toward the end of a really big run. And you just say, like, all right, things need to cool off.
That's CNBC Halftime Report contributor Ritholtz Wealth's Josh Brown. On today's watch list, earnings are coming from BlackBerry and Levi Strauss. We get the number of private sector jobs created in March from ADP. And the Powerball jackpot tonight is more than $1 billion.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, U.S. railroads hit with new federal guidelines. We'll explain. America in the Morning, back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. Taiwan has been hit with its strongest earthquake in 25 years. A magnitude 7.4 earthquake has rocked the island, causing a number of buildings to collapse, landslides, highway closures, and shutdowns in rail service. The quake triggered tsunami warnings for Japan and the Philippines, which were soon downgraded. Back here in the U.S., major freight railroads will have to maintain a two-person crew on most routes under a new federal rule. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
The safety change announced by Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg comes just over a year since the fiery train derailment in eastern Ohio.
This is a good day for the safety of rail workers, rail passengers, and every American who lives near a rail line all across this country.
So large freight trains, some of which can be over 3 miles long, should have at least 2 crew members on board.
A second crew member is vital to performing safety functions like securing a train with handbrakes, handling track switches that are not remotely controlled, obtaining track authorities, assisting in emergencies, and much more.
There were 7 rail employee deaths last year and 46 major injuries due to derailments. I'm Shelley Adler.
The end of an era on the Las Vegas Strip. Correspondent Donna Warder reports from Sin City. The Tropicana Hotel has closed its doors for good.
It's the Strip's third oldest casino, and demolition is slated for October to make room for a $1.5 billion Major League Baseball stadium. Tropicana bartender Charlie Granado says it's a sad day.
This is my home. I love this place. But on the other hand, it made me happy that time, it's not only, it's going to be good for Las Vegas because there's change, and it's going to make the Strip better.
In the Tropicana's heyday, the lavish casino was a frequent haunt of the Rat Pack, and it often hosted A-list stars in its showroom. The ballpark plan for the Tropicana's land is expected to open in 2028. I'm Donna Warder.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
A second channel is open, allowing some vessels to bypass wreckage at the site of the Baltimore bridge collapse. I'm Ed Donahue.
More states vote in the primary elections, but it's not the presidential race everybody's paying attention to. I'm Clayton Neville.
The first state to decriminalize hard drugs is changing things up again. I'm Katie Clark with details.
Anti-smoking groups have sued the government over long-awaited ban on menthol cigarettes. I'm Norman Hall.
Ukrainian drones have attacked one of Russia's biggest oil refineries. I'm Charles de la Tesma.
The FCC plans to restore net neutrality rules. I'm Chuck Palm.
The new Roadhouse is a global hit on streaming. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Yesterday, the nation rocked by severe weather. What's the Wednesday outlook? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A cold front from a large and powerful system will continue the development of severe thunderstorms today. There will be some heavy thunderstorms to start the day from Georgia into western portions of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. And as the cold front moves eastward, it will also put the risk in areas as far north as Delaware and southern New Jersey, and then development as far south as northern Florida. These storms will continue to carry the risk for damaging winds, hail, heavy rain, and even a tornado. Heavier rain will develop to the north of this area from Pennsylvania into southern New York, southern New England, and northern New Jersey. After a good soaking in many communities, we will once again see rain amounts of 1 to 2 inches, and there will be a growing risk for flooding. Farther north of that, the moisture spreading into New England will encounter colder air and allow for heavy, wet snow to develop later today and especially tonight. Some areas could have more than a foot of snow, most likely in the northern mountains. An area of low pressure centered over the Great Lakes will hold nearly stationary this morning before shifting to the south and east this afternoon. There will be some colder air being drawn into the system with moderate to heavy snow possible in the upper peninsula in Michigan, southward to Wisconsin, and even northern Illinois. Several inches of snow have already fallen in the area, and snow that falls today could amount to another 6 inches or more, especially in some northern communities. The West Coast is also becoming increasingly unsettled today and tonight, with a storm continuing to build southward along the coast. Rain and mountain snow will continue to develop along and ahead of it, expanding from Washington and Oregon into northern California and then eastward to Nevada, Idaho, and western Montana. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us everywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The U.S. Navy releases underwater images of the Francis Scott Key Bridge after it plunged into the river at the mouth of the Baltimore harbor. Ed Donahue reports there has been progress on the cleanup as a fuel barge became the first vessel to use a temporary channel to enter the port of Baltimore.
They cut up and lifted a piece of the north section of the Key Bridge. The entire operation took 10 hours. And in that time, they were able to cut and lift a 200-ton span of the bridge.
A second channel is open, allowing some vessels to bypass wreckage at the site of the Baltimore bridge collapse.
These are steel girders, unlike the steel girders that you can see that are above the waterline still, which have significant damage. Below the waterline, along the bottom, is very challenging because these girders are essentially tangled together, intertwined, making it very difficult to figure out where you need to eventually cut so that we can make that into more manageable sizes to lift them from the waterway.
Work is being done on a third channel that will allow larger vessels to pass through and restore more commercial activity.
I'm thankful that after only a week after the collapse, we have pathways and channels so commercial traffic can now move through.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore says rough weather has made it unsafe for divers to recover the bodies of 4 construction workers believed trapped underwater in the wreckage.
We promised these families that we would do everything in our power to bring them closure. But also, my directive is to complete this mission with no injuries and no casualties.
Colonel S.D. Pinchason with the Army Corps of Engineers says the underwater conditions in Baltimore are extremely unforgiving for divers. I'm Ed Donahue.
Voters in several American cities cast primary ballots yesterday. For many at the polls, it was about more than just the presidential race, as we hear from Correspondent Clayton Neville.
No major surprises when it comes to the presidential race in the primaries held Tuesday. Voters cast ballots in Connecticut and Rhode Island, New York, and Wisconsin. President Biden, as expected, took the Democratic nomination and Trump the nod for Republicans. But there was some pushback within party lines. Certainly not enough to make a difference, though. Some Biden supporters voted uncommitted in protest of the president's support for Israel in its war with Hamas. And some Nikki Haley backers opted not to support Trump, who was in Wisconsin yesterday, focused on the general election.
We have an empty podium right here to my right. You know what that is? That's for Joe Biden. I'm trying to get him to debate.
There was more than the presidential race on the ballot yesterday. In Wisconsin, notably, voters chose to ban the use of private money to fund elections there. The constitutional amendment was put on the table by Republicans in response to grants received in 2020 that were funded by donations from Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg.
It alarmed state legislators, and so they have taken the action of putting this measure on the ballot.
Political scientist Barry Burton spoke with WISN-TV.
So many municipalities are really struggling just to cover basic services like paving of roads and keeping streetlights on, that elections are one area that sometimes get neglected. So, election officials do sometimes turn to these private entities to try to help make up the difference.
And hardening an already existing law in Wisconsin, the Republican-led state legislature voted to approve a second question that says only election officials can administer elections in their state. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. is demanding answers from Israel after the deadly strike on World Central Kitchen workers in Gaza. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, the Israeli government is investigating why the location was targeted, with many aid groups now pausing operations over safety concerns.
This was an agreed mission with this team. It was deconflicted. Deconflicted means both sides know they're coming, both sides have agreed. The car was well marked. It was very clear it was World Central Kitchen.
We have been reviewing the incident in the highest levels to understand the circumstances of what happened and how it happened. We will be opening a probe to examine this serious incident further.
The White House says it expects answers from Israel after the deadly strike on aid workers in Gaza.
We were outraged to learn of an IDF strike that killed a number of civilian humanitarian workers yesterday from the World Central Kitchen, which has been relentless in working to get food to those who are hungry in Gaza and, quite frankly, around the world.
National Security spokesman John Kirby notes the Israelis say the strike was a mistake and have already started investigating what happened.
Our expectation is, and we've made this clear to them, that they'll come clean.
Kirby worries the killings will make it less likely other aid groups will keep working to get food into Gaza.
We're not seeing a wholesale declination here of humanitarian assistance in there, but obviously, yes, that's a concern. The more violent it gets for humanitarian aid workers, and as I said, this is one of the worst in recent history, the less likely it is that they're going to be willing to take those risks, which means it's more likely that the people of Gaza are going to just suffer all the more. So yes, it's a concern.
The White House says President Biden called World Central Kitchen founder Jose Andres to say he's grieving with the entire organization. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
When we return on America in the Morning, this state's liberal drug policy didn't quite work out. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. This is America in the Morning. The state of Oregon is reversing course and recriminalizing small amounts of hard drugs after a 2020 voter initiative changed the law but led to an increase in crime and drug use. Katie Clark has the story.
The first state in the union to decriminalize hard drug usage and possession is pivoting back, changing the law yet again. In 2021, more than half of Oregon voters approved a bill that would decriminalize the possession and usage of hard drugs like methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin. The new law, starting in 2022, avoided sending addicts to jail. Instead, they were given a $100 fine and directed to rehab facilities. One study showed since 2021 that drug overdoses increased 13-fold, and another study showed that opioid deaths tripled between 2019 and 2022. Oregon is second in substance abuse disorder. Critics of decriminalization pointed out the increase in deaths and that rehab services weren't widely available. Governor Tina Kotek signed the new law this week that will recriminalize possession of a small amount of drugs, making possession a misdemeanor, carrying with it 6 months jail time. It goes into effect September 1st. I'm Katie Clark.
The FDA is facing a lawsuit seeking to force a ban on menthol cigarettes following delays by the Biden administration. Correspondent Norman Hall explains.
Anti-smoking groups have sued the government over a long-awaited ban on menthol cigarettes. The ban has been idling at the White House for months. Menthols are disproportionately used by black smokers and young people. The lawsuit comes amid growing concerns from advocates that the federal plan could be derailed by election year politics. The Food and Drug Administration estimates a ban could prevent 300,000 to 650,000 smoking deaths over several decades. Menthol is the only cigarette flavor that was not banned under the 2009 law that gave the FDA authority over tobacco products. I'm Norman Hall.
Somehow, a Ukrainian drone was able to penetrate Russian airspace for 800 miles before hitting its target, an oil refinery. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports this comes as the Kremlin intensifies the search for those responsible for the March 22nd terror attack in Moscow.
Ukrainian drones have attacked one of Russia's biggest oil refineries and a drone factory in the Russian province of Tatarstan, officials say, in what appears to be Kyiv's deepest strike into Russian territory since the war began. Regional authorities add the attack on facilities 745 miles east of Ukraine injured over 10 people, Ukrainian security and intelligence officials say. They targeted a drone production site using Ukrainian-produced long-range drones. Tatarstan is known for its high level of industrialization, and a factory near the city of Yelabuga has reportedly built Iranian-designed Shahed exploding drones.
Мы знаем, что преступление совершено руками радикальных исламистов.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has vowed to track down the masterminds of the Moscow concert hall attack that left 144 people dead in the worst assault on Russian soil in 2 decades. He urged the country's law enforcement agencies to tighten security at mass gatherings. Putin has repeatedly sought to link the attack to Ukraine and the West, despite the Islamic State group's claim of responsibility and Kyiv's strong denial. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Big changes coming for Amazon and its fresh grocery stores. Carting in that story, correspondent Shelley Adler.
After hearing from customers who enjoyed skipping the checkout line, but also wanted to view their receipts and savings as they shopped, Amazon Fresh is making a change. Instead of skipping the checkout line and getting a receipt after, Amazon says customers will be using smart carts that allow shoppers to skip the checkout line, but also see their spending in real time. Just Walkout technology will continue to be offered in Amazon Go stores and some smaller Amazon Fresh stores in the UK. I'm Shelley Adler.
Obama-era rules about internet regulations are being restored by the FCC. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
The FCC will vote this week to restore net neutrality rules that were laid out by the Obama administration. The commission voted 3-2 in October on the proposal to reinstate open internet rules adopted in 2015 and reestablish the commission's authority over broadband internet. Net neutrality is the principle that internet service providers should enable access to all content and applications, regardless of the source and without favoring or blocking particular products or websites. FCC Chair Jessica Rosenworcel confirmed and said the pandemic made it clear that broadband is an essential service and every one of us, no matter who we are or where we live, needs access. Under the Trump administration, FCC had argued net neutrality rules were unnecessary and blocked innovation. Republican FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr opposed the move and argued the plan would result in government control of the internet. He also argued broadband speeds in the U.S. have increased and prices are down. Leave a comment at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
And there's news about this medium from the Federal Communications Commission. After years of debate, the FCC has officially adopted FM geotargeting. This will allow stations to air geo-targeted content for a portion of their broadcast hour using localized boosters. This is America in the Morning. We've got Robert Workman in with Wednesday Sports.
Baseball, the Brewers trimmed the Twins 3-2 to remain unbeaten at 4-0, winning their home opener. Rookie Jackson Chourio singled in a run in his first home at-bat. Manager Pat Murphy, happy to have him.
I don't know what he was thinking. It might scare me if I did know, but he's a big-time performer.
Diamondbacks handed the Yankees their first loss, 7-0, behind the three-hit pitching of Zach Gallen on the courts. White Sox shaded the Braves for their first win. Angels over the Marlins. Miami 0-6, worst start in franchise history. Cubs rolled over the Rockies, hitting 4 home runs. After going hitless in his first 3 games of the season, Bryce Harper broke out with 3 homers, 2 solos, and a granny to lead the Phillies over the Reds. Davis Schneider's 2-run shot off Josh Hader with 2 out in the 9th boosted the Blue Jays over the Astros. Dodgers held off the Giants. Mookie Betts with his league-leading 5th home run. Red Sox, Royals, Rays, Guardians, and Cardinals win. NIT semifinals in Indianapolis. Indiana State slammed Utah, and Seton Hall hounded Georgia, so it'll be the Sycamores and the Pirates tomorrow night for the championship. NBA, the Nuggets fought off the Spurs 110-105. They take over first place in the West. Nikola Jokic, 42 points. Sixers got Joel Embiid back and thumped the Thunder. He had 24 points in his first game in 2 months after knee surgery. Timberwolves topped the Rockets. Minnesota and Oklahoma City now tied for second in the West, just a half game behind Denver. Lakers dragged the Raptors. LA has won 7 of 8. Toronto has lost 14 in a row. Wins for the Warriors, Wizards, Kings, Heat, and Cavs. NHL, Bruins blanked the Predators 3-0. Linus Ullmark made 32 saves and assisted on Charlie Coyle's go-ahead goal. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, sir. Robert Workman with sports. A so-so 80s movie finds new life on streaming. That story when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. He spent 6 decades on TV and in movies, becoming famous for his work on Second City Television. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports on the death of actor-comedian Joe Flaherty.
Joe Flaherty was born Joseph O. Flaherty in Pittsburgh. He dropped the O because another actor had that name.
Count Floyd here.
Flaherty created characters like horror TV host Count Floyd, news anchor Floyd Robertson, and talk show host Sammy Maudlin for the sketch series SCTV.
Gloria Steinem announced today that the National Organization of Women is going to sponsor a new bill called the Almost Equal Rights Amendment. According to Ms. Steinem, the new amendment will acknowledge that women are inferior, but that they deserve some rights because they're pretty and they don't eat much.
He won 2 Emmys for writing for SCTV.
You're going to need a blanket and suntan lotion.
Because you're never going to get off that beach. Just the way you never got into the NHL.
Flaherty also was the heckler in the movie Happy Gilmore, and he played the dad on the series Freaks and Geeks.
By the way, that drummer you're listening to? Yeah. He's terrible.
That's Neil Peart. He's the greatest drummer alive.
Well, Neil Peart couldn't drum his way out of a paper bag.
He later served as an artist in residence at Humber College in Toronto. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
It wasn't quite a blockbuster when it was in theaters in 1989, but gained a cult following. Now the 2024 remake of Roadhouse has become a hit on streaming. Kevin Carr reports.
The Roadhouse remake starring Jake Gyllenhaal is breaking some records.
People seem a little aggressive around here.
Amazon announced this week that Roadhouse has been watched by 50 million people globally in its first 10 days. According to Amazon, it's their, quote, most watched produced film debut ever on a worldwide basis.
It takes a lot to get me angry, but when I am, I just can't let go.
The news comes after director Doug Liman lashed out at the studio for taking the film directly to streaming rather than giving it a theatrical release. Liman was so upset that he threatened to boycott its premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival earlier this year.
It's my way or the highway.
Amazon did not elaborate on how it counted viewers rather than minutes watched or how much the film was seen. Still, the original 1989 Roadhouse starring Patrick Swayze grossed only $30 million in its release. Based on the average ticket price of $3.99 at the time, this means less than 8 million people watched the original in theaters. Maybe Roadhouse is just destined for home video fame.
It'll get worse before it gets better.
Critics gave the new Roadhouse a middling 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. However, Netflix has shown that critics don't necessarily drive viewership. Two of their most popular films, Red Notice and The Mother, had upside-down Rotten Tomatoes scores of 37% and 43% respectively.
See? Easy peasy.
I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.